All right, welcome back to the Sports Show here. We have a guest in today. He's Devon Clements. He writes for CLNS Media, covers the Celtics and the NBA. He also covers high school sports coverage for the Standard Times. He's going to talk to us today about the NBA. Devon, welcome in.
Hey guys, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
No problem at all. So how long have you been writing for CLNS Media for?
So I started with them back in August. They started picking up a writing staff back then. I joined them and I started writing for the Celtics, and I've loved doing it ever since.
Nice. And you also host the GOAT podcast.
Yes, I do.
Who's that with? That's two colleagues, it says?
So I started with two colleagues in June. We were going for about one episode a week until January, and then they got their own jobs they got to worry about. So I started doing it myself, and now I do it Celtics based. It was NFL based during the football season. Now I transitioned over to Celtics. So I have a guest on every single week, and we just have a conversation about the Celtics.
Nice. That sounds pretty good. And then you also have and you also do some sports coverage at the Standard Times. You've been there for how long now?
I've been there for a little over a year now.
A little over a year.
Yes.
Nice, awesome. Well, it's good. It's a good local outfit too. We always work around with them too. So we're gonna get into the Celtics here now. They just had a game in Detroit last night. Obviously, Marcus Smart came up big again. As I think it's the only thing I personally see him useful for is some defensive ability, and then being in the clutch. Otherwise, I kind of see him as a waste. We'll talk about that. But are they going to get over this little injury plague here? I mean, it seems like they've been kind of habitually behind Toronto for a while now.
I think last night's game was very hopeful for what we could see in the future for the Celtics. The big problem before the All-Star break was there was a lot of offensive inconsistency with them. Defense, even though they dropped off a couple pegs, they were still number one in defensive rating, which was kind of crazy to think about when you see the kind of runs they were giving up, the kind of points they were giving up. But seeing last night, seeing the kind of minutes the guys off the bench were going, which is I think is something we're going to see a lot more. They had 5 guys, 20-plus minutes, which was crazy off the bench. I think seeing those and seeing the way they played offensively and how they were able to keep a tempo, early off in the game, they gave up a 7-1 run. You started getting a little scared, like, is this going to be another one of those big runs you saw against the Cavaliers, against the Pacers? But they were able to stop that. And I think, just like you said, I think Marcus Smart's defensive ability gave them the opportunity to stop the run, come back into the game, and then they were able to really maintain the lead once I think they got to 32-32, and I think after that, they were able to keep the lead and maintain it for the rest of the game. So I think the injury plague, it's going to happen. It's you're going to have 1 or 2 guys that are going to be injured. I think Shane Larkin's still out. Marcus Smart, that was a stupid thing to happen. It wasn't a basketball injury. It was off the court injury. I think they'll be able to sustain it. It's just a matter of who can step up if someone does get hurt.
So this question seems to be kind of brought up a lot, pretty frequently. But is Marcus, the defensive ability, I kind of view it, and I don't know if this is even accurate, but I view it kind of as defensive ability in baseball. It's kind of what you should have already. No one's going to praise a shortstop for his ability to feel the ground ball and throw it to first. They want to look at his hitting. So with the lack of offensive ability for Marcus Smart, and obviously he is clutch. You can't deny that. He's had some big moments in his few years here, and I think he's actually the oldest person on the team, right?
I believe.
Yeah.
It's
strangely.
Yeah,
long tenured. Okay,
Al
yeah.
Horford, I think, is the oldest one on the team.
That's right. You're right. Horford is, but I guess my point is that something that's ultimately replaceable when you have, could you find somebody else to have a better defensive ability, better offensive, production, and you also can have that clutch factor too, I guess.
I think the defensive effort on his part is replaceable, but, a colleague of mine at CLNS is actually a new recruit to the network, Adam Kaufman. He does a Celtics Beat podcast, and he made a statement the other day on his first podcast on Sunday that I thought was really interesting with Marcus Smart. He said he's one of these guys that if he's at a YMCA game playing some pickup basketball, he's a guy that's going to die for the basketball. And that just perfectly explains the kind of guy that Marcus Smart is.
He's got a little Larry Bird kind of rough and tough in him, too.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
He's rough and tough. He's got the energy. And I think that is what would hurt if we were to get rid of him. And let's say he walks away in free agency, or we don't sign him, or we trade him to another team. That's where we would hurt a lot. He not playing in the last few games, it hurt defensively, not having him in the game, not having the energy, not having a tempo and stuff like that with him on the court is what really, really impacts the Celtics.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. Really, it seems like the biggest issue is, or bring it back to, like Tim made a reference to baseball earlier. Defense is kind of something you think you should have, but it's like in baseball when you have a lineup full of sluggers, you can have a couple of guys who are in your lineup who aren't key contributors offensively just because they play solid defense or do all the little things right. And Smart really seems to be doing that. And I think it showed in that last handful of games there how they kind of, or before the All-Star break, was it 2 games right before the All-Star break with their highest point totals they had given up all season. He's not there. teams can exploit those weaknesses. Yeah, he might be a guy who doesn't give you much offensively or kind of a one-trick pony, but his one trick's pretty good. And if you can get another guy in there, like say next year Gordon Hayward comes back, the offense kind of makes itself up, right?
Absolutely. I think one of the big problems that the Celtics had faced when they were finding their offensive consistencies after the London trip when they played against the Sixers was that they too many times in the game when the first team is off the court and the second team comes in, they're relying on Marcus Smart too much to be the first scoring option. And I think now when he was hurt for those couple weeks and Terry Rozier stepped up, now they realize, okay, Marcus Smart could be on the floor, but we don't have to rely on him to be a scorer. We can rely on him to facilitate, but we have guys like Marcus Morris and we have guys like Terry Rozier who can come and score for us when guys like Kyrie Irving and Tatum and even Al Horford aren't in the game.
Well, I mean, at one point does it run out though? I mean, is the Celtics bench a bench that could eventually kind of run thin? I mean, I don't know how much trust. I think Tatum is probably the youngest player they have that actually gives you that kind of trust that you can put him in the game whenever they want, or even when he's out. I don't know if you just mentioned him, but is Morris? Is that bench factor something you can trust down the stretch against Cleveland or even Toronto if we see them?
I mean, it's going to be tough right now with the way Cleveland's looking. They got a nice starting five, but how reliable can they be with that bench? You know what I mean? We don't know what they have. They went on a little bit of a hot streak. They just lost their first game after the All-Star break to the Wizards, so that's something to be said for that. You know what I mean? The Wizards don't have John Wall now. They're playing with a lot of energy. Everyone's got a break now. They had about a week stretch where they didn't have to play any games because of the All-Star break. Some of them played over the weekend, but you had just mentioned it before. Daniel Tice came in. He played well. Marcus Morris plays well. He comes in, plays well offensively. You got Greg Monroe, who's getting more minutes and starting to implement himself well into the second unit. You got Terry Rozier and you got Marcus Smart. These are all guys that any given night can give you, let's say, somewhere in like the 12 to 17 point range. And that's what they need. I think there's enough options off the bench where they can count on at least one of those guys to have that kind of performance. And that's why I'm not too scared about them finding offensive inconsistencies down the stretch. Okay.
Is Cleveland's new team, since we already mentioned them too. The last before this whole injury thing happened, Cleveland wasn't even it wasn't even a worry, honestly. I think probably the first game of the season people were kind of enticed for the game, but after that they've been kind of treated them like they're like a JV team. The Celtics have had no real problem against them. What did LeBron James do in Cleveland do to rebuild this team around him to embarrass the Celtics that they did last week? Is that just related to the injuries, or is that going to be something that's going to be a pain if Hayward and Irving came back magically?
Well, I mean, I think with Cleveland, it helps when you completely revamp your team, and I think they took the average age of the team and brought it down 6 years.
Exactly, yeah.
So that helps. It's one thing when you got guys like Isaiah Thomas and Derrick Rose and Jay Crowder on a team, and they're around the aura of LeBron James, who's a relatively around the same age as them, and they're like, who are you? You know what I mean? You've been in the league just as long as we have. But when you bring young guys in like a Larry Nance Jr. or Jordan Clarkson, these guys look up to LeBron James. These are guys who grew up watching him play and maybe even try to replicate their game after LeBron James.
But wasn't it even Clarkson who did say he admitted it? He was like, we have to build our game around LeBron. That's just the way it is.
It is,
and that's something that Isaiah Thomas, I'm sure, wouldn't be willing to admit. Irving's certainly not, but Irving's obviously way more of a star. But I think that's honestly good for that team. I mean, I'm sure LeBron's happy with that. I'm sure everybody else is happy with that. As a rookie, I don't know if I would go that. I kind of have the attitude I'd be like, screw you. I'm not going to form around you, but you're also LeBron, so I don't know.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just a situation where no matter who it is on the team, you have to work around LeBron James because he's going to have the ball in his hands no matter where he is playing on the court. I listened to a show the other day where Chris Bosh was talking about playing with LeBron James back when he was on Miami, and he said he had to completely change up his game when LeBron came onto the team. He used to be a guy that could post up and score a lot of points in the paint, but when LeBron came in, he had to start moving away from the paint and start moving his way out to the three-point line because he understood that's just not going to work when you have LeBron James on the court with you. It's a completely different way of playing when you have a superstar like him on the court.
So, stepping away from the Cavs for a second, just looking at, as we start the second half, or the back stretch of the season, really not the second half, it's like 20 games left, who else really poses a threat other than the Cavs to the Celtics? Because I know we were talking a little bit off here, and you made the joke that the Toronto Raptors, you kind of look at them like the Pittsburgh Steelers of the NBA. Like, it's just a matter of time until they blow it up in a big situation. And we got the Wizards, which are the 4 seed right now. But, I mean, come on. Are the Wizards, especially with John Wall injured, are they a real threat? What is in the Celtics' way other than maybe themselves at this point, and the Cavs?
I mean, Toronto, even though I said that, they pee down their leg when it matters the most. That's just the matter of it. That's the way the Pittsburgh Steelers are. They had a great team this year, and then they managed to blow it up in the playoffs against the Jaguars. That's just how some teams are. I'm not going to completely count them out and say that they're not a threat. You know what I mean? DeMar DeRozan has changed up his game a lot, and that's scary. He's starting to shoot the three a little bit more. That could be a big impact. That was a one knock on his game in the past years. Now that he's changed that, Toronto's a real serious threat, and I can't sit here and say that we could definitely beat them in a 7-game series. I think if we went to a 7-game series against them, it would take 7 games.
Sure.
I don't think it would be a 4 or 5-game series. So taking that in consideration and seeing the way Cleveland's playing, I have to assume that they're going to keep up this tempo as well. I don't know. Like, I'm worried that they're not going to make it to the conference championship. I really am, and I don't want to have that attitude. But I've watched every single game this year, and I've seen the inconsistencies and the consistencies he's had on both sides of the ball, and I just don't. I really don't know what to think at this point in time.
Is the lack of parity in the league, especially the Eastern Conference? And I was just looking at the standings in the Eastern Conference right now, and it has the win percentages. There's 2 teams who have a win percentage above 500 right now. People are in the 500s, they're not, but it's literally just Toronto with a 719 win percentage and the Celtics with 678. Otherwise, everyone's 519, 540 something. So it really shows you that there's 2 competitive teams in that conference at all. Cavaliers, I think actually, if I missed them, I'm sure they're probably in the 6 win percentage, but. I don't know. For me, I'm talking viewership now anyway. Does it take away interest at all? I mean, obviously it doesn't take any way. The NBA season has a substance anyway. There's always a game to write about. There's always something going on. But at least, from a Celtics fan standpoint, or even any team standpoint, if you're a fan of a team in the Eastern Conference, does it kind of take away from the excitement knowing that you're going to get smoked by a Golden State anyway? That's the way it is now. No, everyone knows it.
Yeah, I think it absolutely does. I mean, you look at it last year. Golden State, I don't believe they lost a single game going into the finals, and Cleveland only lost 1 game. And that's why there's been a lot of talk during the All-Star break about maybe turning it into just the top 16 teams in the league.
I've heard that came out, yeah.
And that's an interesting thought because you look at the West, there's a lot of good teams in the West that may not make it to the playoffs. And you take the worst team in the West, you take the worst team in the East. It's a big difference.
It's lopsided. It's the boys and it's the men and the boys over there. It's seriously. I mean, I think the Celtics, they have a couple games, like maybe 3, like 4 at most, probably against Golden State per year, maybe less. And that's kind of like the midway through kind of test point. And they usually do pretty well. I mean, even when they was it 2 years ago when they I think it was like 2 years ago they almost beat Golden State at home during Golden State's NBA record season, and it kind of all becomes a little fairy tale because it's kind of like the old Red Sox kind of curse. They get you pumped up during the regular season and then they crap their pants in the postseason. And so I just don't know what needs to be changed. Would that seeding change everything? Would that just make everything all better? Or would you still have kind of boring games leading up to the playoffs in the Eastern Conference? Because that's, if I'm watching the NBA, honestly, if I'm, as a fan, obviously, if you're reporting on it, different story. But from a fan standpoint, I really don't want to turn on an Eastern Conference game unless the Celtics are in it.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I watch every game because that's just me.
Exactly, that's you.
I have to watch it.
That's why we have you here.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't, doing the whole 1 through 16 seed thing for the playoffs, that's just for the playoffs. That would not be for any regular season matchups. No. There's still a lot of good games out there. I mean, you watch when the Celtics were on their bad stretches last month and a half. They're playing against teams like the Pacers who have been turning heads a lot lately. Guys like Victor Oladipo playing at a very high level, higher level than most people thought he could ever reach in his NBA career. It's still early in his career, but you see those kind of games where they beat the Celtics. These games are still interesting to watch because the season is so long that you can catch the Celtics off guard, or you can catch the Cavaliers off guard certain nights. Just like I said the other night, the Wizards beat the Cavaliers.
Right.
You wouldn't expect that, especially with John Wall not playing at all. So I think the interest level is still there, but when you look at the records and you look at it from a casual fan perspective who might watch, let's say, maybe a third of the games for Celtics, it does seem like it's not very interesting.
And that's what the league's trying to capture. I mean, obviously, because they have the hardcore fans. That's who you have to. That's what every league, the NFL, MLB, NBA. That's who they're all trying to get involved in watching their sport. They want to get someone. They want to convert everybody. And I just think, because I would definitely say I'm more. I watch the NBA more than the casual fan. But out of all the sports, that's probably my most casual sport. If football's on, that's football for me. But but going back to the NBA, I think the reason why I've said it before the show, and I told Jimmy this before also, if I had a choice, I'd be this age watching the 80s and 90s basketball, and I think there's 2 reasons, and this is why I think it translates into viewability. Even though the NBA honestly is I think their ratings have been up lately, and they've actually kind of show giving a clinic to kind of the other leagues how to do it, but. I just think one, the old NBA had more parity. Obviously, you had more parity across both conferences. You had also more physicality too. I mean, I think everyone's tired of seeing the the consistent, like LeBron James. If he drives to the hoop, he's going to get fouled or he's going to get a layup. It's either get in his way, get a foul, or don't. I don't know. So I just think that with hand checking back in the 90s, for example, that was a way more entertaining aspect to it because you would, like Michael Jordan would get destroyed going to the hoop. I just didn't know of your thoughts on that. It's kind of a sidetrack from the Celtics talk, but
I don't know. The physicality definitely isn't there like it used to be. That's one of the reasons why it's hard for me to like LeBron James because he's as big of a superstar he is and as many stats as he puts across the board, he's always complaining about a foul or something like that. He can hit the ground and he's sitting there, holding his face for 5 minutes, and even though there's nothing wrong, it's just the physicality definitely isn't there, and I can understand that's why you would rather watch the 80s kind of basketball style because it's a lot more physicality. For me, I think it has to do with the evolution of the game as well. Ever since Steph Curry came into the league, the three-point shot has become a much more emphasis.
Great lead, and that was my next point. That was what I was going to lead up to. Is the three-point ball going to kill the NBA eventually? Because and this is me. This is just my opinion on it. I can't stand it when it's a game where it's Golden State. I'll watch them in the finals and everything, and I'll watch them when they're on. I get so annoyed. I can't just do something else besides chucking up a three. It's talented. It's great. It's effective. But I just think, are people going to get bored of seeing that?
I don't think people are going to get bored of seeing it.
I do. I don't know why. I mean, I just maybe I'm just like an old school mind. I don't know, but I just see if there's 30 years of this, maybe Steph Curry and them because that's their niche and that's what they do. It's the Patriots winning. That's what they're labeled as. But I don't know, Jimmy. What do you think?
I mean, I kind of share the same mindset as you, and me being a former big man myself. When I played, I miss the fact that there's not banging down low. There's not guys, true big men anymore. Everybody's got the European big man flow. They want to go outside, shoot three-pointers, things like that. I see it all the way down. I ref youth league, and I see it now. No one goes in the paint.
I'm not saying have a Ben Watson Detroit Pistons fight from 2004. I'm just saying,
just get more physical. Play down low.
Yeah.
Don't be worried about contact.
Because otherwise, what can you really do? Even nowadays, because if I don't know, it's not really the tie I have with it too is I can't really call it unfair. It's working. It's with the rules. It's not unfair, but it's like there's no real answer to it. If Steph Curry's going to shoot from under his legs and backwards and still get it in somehow, it's like how do you even stop? If the Celtics did even make it and play at Golden State, how would they even stop them? Like I would.
You got to look at it this way. Steph Curry came into the league, and this is when this all started happening.
Right. Yeah.
When he leaves the league, there's no one else that can do it like he can do it.
Well, no, but
you got to consider it a phase. That's how I look at it. I feel like it's always going to go back to the basics. You still see teams like New Orleans when Boogie Cousins wasn't hurt, and see Anthony Davis. You see teams like the Celtics played last night, the Pistons. They got like an Andre Drummond, and they got Blake Griffin. These are teams that are still trying to play.
Even the Spurs, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Even the Spurs. They're still trying to play the old school approach of basketball, and they're still successful with it. So I think right now, because of the way Golden State's playing, other teams understand that if they want to compete with Golden State, they have to play their type of basketball, which is the three-point shot. Once Golden State is broken up and Steph Curry and guys like Klay Thompson leave the NBA, I feel like it'll then simmer down and go back to the way it was originally played. But I feel like right now it's just a phase.
Yeah, but wouldn't that lead to the youth coming up and being developed, aiming to be three-point shooters like him and kind of having a natural effect of being a three-point league? If everyone needs to match this monster in Golden State, wouldn't that kind of lead to an effect of, okay, everyone's going to try to be like them, and it's going to be a league of three-point shooters when Curry leaves?
I mean, it might too, but there's still not a whole lot of teams in there that have a success doing it. I mean, Celtics.
That's true. Yeah.
So the Celtics try to be a three-point shot team, but you can always see sometimes there's not a whole lot of success in it. It's a difficult thing to do, consistently hit the three-point shot.
Well, there's not a whole lot of successful teams in the NBA to begin with. I mean, there's like 5 teams that probably have a shot of going. Well, in the West, there's really one team is going, but in the East, it's like 3 or 4. So I mean, I don't know. I think ultimately it's the parity. I mean, the three-pointers. That's another point I have. I get annoyed by it. I've only heard people who are in their 80s or 90s get annoyed by it too. So I'm probably in a different class of people, different class of thinking. But I don't know. Just drive the goddamn ball to the hoop. That's all. That's all. But all right. So finishing up the season here, is there any major any major gaps or any major obstacles that they have to get over? Any major series? I can't really see anything that's besides maybe a square dance with Cleveland or Toronto again. But I don't see that little niche team like how Charleston used to be a pain in the ass for the Celtics. For almost every time they traveled there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing, like you mentioned before when we were talking about the Celtics, I think they just need to make sure they don't get in their own way. Having a guy like Greg Monroe now coming to the team, they're starting to get more minutes, and now we're starting to see that a lot of guys off the bench get more minutes. I believe it was across the board. There was 9 guys that played 20-plus minutes, and then there was one person, I can't remember off the top of my head, that played 19 minutes off the bench. That's a lot of guys getting that kind of minutes. I had said before the All-Star break that I think that Aaron Baines should have a more limited role, and that seemed to be what happened last night. He played the first 3 minutes of the game and then didn't play again for the rest of the game.
Did I read he was in? Did he get injured, though?
I think he did get injured. But I think we're going to
an
start
excuse
seeing,
to pull you out kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that someone like a Greg Monroe should start playing more in the first team, because even though as great of a defensive player Aaron Baines is, I think he's still one of the top 5 in defensive efficiency in the league. He is such a liability on offense, and even rebounding wise, he's playing. If he plays 25, 30 minutes, he's only getting 5 or 6 rebounds. I feel like that's just unacceptable out of your big man. So having a guy like Greg Monroe who's able to score, not a great finisher, which I was kind of yelling at the TV watching, because this is sometimes he's getting like an easy layup and just missing it. You could see the impact he had against someone like an Andre Drummond, where instead of getting a 25 and 25 game, he had a 15 and 17 game. That's still a great game for Andre Drummond, but it's not an explosive game like the Celtics would normally give up. And I think having a guy like a Greg Monroe, giving more minutes to a guy like Daniel Tice down the stretch, and not allowing these big guys to just give up. Get a monster stat line will definitely impact the Celtics and how far they can make it in the playoffs.
Well, on a relatively short team anyway, that leads me to my next question is, if they need to do any offseason work, this is obviously projecting, but with the trade with the trade deadline over, how do you think that? I think they'd have to put a focus on getting more big men, because obviously Al Horford, and I don't know if you've heard what Lou Merloni's take in Boston was on him too, average Al. Where do you think obviously you don't agree? I think. He's the only big man. It's kind of he needs to do the job. Who are they going to put in? Old Kelly Olynyk, who looks like he looks like he's like in a girl's shampoo commercial. I don't even know. But so just tell me, what are they going to do? Are they going? You think they're going to? You anticipate them searching for a bit more big men than to at least play with Al Horford, or maybe even a trade?
I mean, the idea of Anthony Davis coming to the team, Danny Ainge made it very, very open that he's always searching for trade. His phone line is always open to New Orleans, because he understands how much of a superstar Anthony Davis is. You have that guy on a team for anybody, they're gonna have success.
Yeah, but Anthony Davis, though, I feel like he's the equivalent to South Coast Rail being promised down here. It's been like a long-standing promise that we're just hearing over and over again. He's not going to come here.
No, and if he were to come here, we'd have to give up all of our young guys, all of our draft picks. It wouldn't be worth it. With the team they have right now, I don't see them having to make a big move for a big man. I mean, if you keep getting guys like Greg Monroe, guys that can get you a double-double, 10 points, 10 rebounds, I don't need a big game out of him points-wise or defensive-wise. I just need someone that can do better than what we're doing right now. A guy like Aaron Baines is not the answer for us. He played well the first couple months of the season. He's just not the answer. He's still young, but I just don't think that they can have a guy like him who can't play very well on both sides of the floor. They just need to find someone that is average, not like Al Horford, because Al Horford is not average. If you think he's average, it's because you don't watch the games, you don't understand the kind of facilitator he is as a big man, and you don't understand what he can bring to the team, not just from an offensive standpoint. So I don't think they need to go out and make a big move for a big man. I think they're very comfortable where they are right now.
Well, so don't you think in some respects you're going to be getting you already have a free agent coming in next year in Gordon Hayward, right? And he's going to add offensively and be able to do things offensively to boost your team. Don't you think just bringing back like a Greg Monroe would be perfectly fine, right? Because he gives you said that versatility where he's maybe not as good as Aaron Baines defensively, but he's good enough to limit a little bit. And even though he might not be limiting the opponent or the opponent's big man as much as Aaron Baines is defensively, he's making up for it by scoring a little bit more than Baines is. So if you can get Monroe, I think they just have him for the rest of the year, right? If they can re-up him on another 1-2 year deal, and you add Hayward, what he brings offensively, you've kind of fixed your situation, haven't you, in some respects?
Yeah, this is the way I look at it, just from a pure number standpoint. Okay, this team is so good defensively that what's the hurt in just having them knock down a couple of pegs by getting rid of a guy like Aaron Baines just from the starting lineup, okay? Because there's such a good defensive team that if they just move someone in that has more offensive talent, they're still going to be a great defensive team. It's not going to hurt them that much. They're struggling so much offensively that it wouldn't hurt to just bring in someone more offensive, and that's just from a pure overall perspective.
Well, especially with today's NBA, as we were just talking about, it's an offensive game. I mean, that is a good point. I mean, I think wouldn't a big man help you offensively also, though? Because obviously, Aaron Baines, he can't hit. He couldn't hit water falling out of a boat. But I think there's more options in the league, even the cheap option, because he's not his contract isn't that expensive. I don't think it's not even close. It's like a drop in the bucket. So in getting rid of him, it would save a little bit of it would open the bank account a little bit more. But would opening the bank, giving a little bit more room in the cap really be worth getting rid of at least somebody, at least a body to give someone some rest, or is Baines just to the point where just get rid of him as fast as you can?
I mean, it's tough. It all depends on the scenario. You know what I mean? It's very
Yeah.
It's a very complex situation because you don't know who they're going to go for, and it really all depends. Because if you're going to get rid of him, you're probably going to have to give up a couple other people or a couple draft picks and some money. You know what I mean? So overall, unless they're going for a superstar and they're just trying to throw a lot of numbers at someone just to make them interested, I don't see what's wrong with just getting rid of him and just cutting loose with him, because it's just with the kind of numbers he's putting up this year, I don't think anyone's really going to be that interested in him.
I'm sorry, Al Horford. Would he be? Do you foresee him being part of any sort of trade package at all for different, him and a couple draft picks, say? Because the Celtics still have a few stocked, a good amount of draft picks stocked up, I think, from a couple trades, right? If I'm correct, yeah.
They got the
So
Lakers.
they could probably,
a
a few, so if they have a few lottery chances in there, maybe also from, I don't know if they even have any left, but would that carry over from any? I don't know, but would you see a package going through with Al Horford at all for anybody else, any sort of combination? Because I'm going to play devil's advocate for your second here, because obviously you watch this game way more than I do. You know the ins and outs of it more than I do, but what little things does he do? Everyone says you get if you're calling him average Al, you got to watch. You're not watching the game. You're not seeing the little things he does. Isn't it more about just putting the ball in the basket? He hasn't really seemed to be around the rim.
That's just not the type of game he has. Not the two things that stick out in my head. All right, he's one of the best 3-point shooters in the NBA. Period. That's just out of anybody. Okay.
Okay.
And he is one of the best facilitators of the ball for a big man ever, okay? And I'm being serious when I say ever.
You mean the setup game?
I'm saying assist-wise.
Okay.
Okay, assist-wise.
Okay.
I've never seen a guy his size pass the ball like him besides LeBron James, and LeBron James isn't quite, that's
a different class, yeah.
Exactly. It's a once-in-a-lifetime kind of guy. Sure. But just having him on the floor, I don't care if he gets me 8, 7, 6, 5, that many points a game. It doesn't really matter to me because he's able to facilitate the ball. He's able to perform well in the pick and roll situation. So having him on the floor and not performing to a standard that everyone thinks a big man should perform at, and not getting the rebounds, not getting the points, and stuff like that, or not getting the block shots, I don't mind that, because I know a lot of people have the mindset, well, if you're a center or you're a power forward, you should be putting up those certain kind of stat lines. But that's just not the kind of player he has, and that's what the Celtics understand. There's some situations where he'll come up the floor with the ball because they understand that he's such a valuable asset, being at his size, that he can pass the ball really, really well and put them in mismatched situations because of it.
We can probably see the criticism at least at some point, because I don't know. Have you ever heard of have you ever heard any player you can remember that's worth remembering that was the ultimate the ultimate assister besides like your what's his freaking name? You had your Stocktons, those guys. You ever heard this guy's gonna be worth a lot of money. He's a big man who can pass.
No, I haven't.
It just sounds kind of like it's like.
To Devon's credit, though, I'm looking at the box score right now. Right, Al Horford had 3 points. That's the least of any starter on the team, with the exception of Baines, who only played 3 minutes. So take him out of there. He had 3 points, but he also had the highest plus minus, and it's not even close. He was plus minus 12. The next closest is Kyrie Irving at plus minus 4. So if you take away the guys on the bench who played a big role yesterday, he's making a difference, whether it's something that the casual fan can pick up on, because we're looking for rebounds and points and all that good stuff. He's making a difference in some respects, so it's just interesting to look at it from that standpoint.
I know I buy it. No, I buy that argument too. I would say that the 3-pointers, though, I think you can probably name a few more people in the league that are better than him at 3-pointers. You can have. You can look at the entire Golden State roster, for example. But I don't know. I call me the casual NBA fan, I guess. I'm more of a devil's advocate, I guess. I'm going to take your word for it, but I think that I don't know. I can't point it out. Again, I have no real basis to point it out. I'm not an NBA coach, but I think that it just seems like he could be producing more. It's just the bottom stat line. You can say plus minus and everything all you want, all these little kind of different stats, but I think the bottom line I look at, and it's like he's having what's his points per game? What's his points per game this year? You have that up there?
Give me 1 second.
This is a guy across the board. If you look at his career numbers, it's nothing fantastic.
Yeah, no, that's the same thing.
I want to say it's
13-1 this year, 13.1.
Yeah, I think career-wise, I think he's somewhere in the 12, 11-point range and like 6 rebounds and 5 assists overall. All right, so this is not a guy that's going to put you up big numbers, but it's not always about the stat line. It's not always what you show me on paper. It's what I'm seeing with my eyes.
That's true. That's probably what. And Brad Stevens does seem like the kind of coach who probably has that game plan already going into even getting him on the team a couple years ago. I think that's something he had. He's definitely one. You take away Greg Popovich and Doc Rivers in the league, and even I think he's even better than Doc now. He's the best coach in the league. I don't think it's close. What would you think about that? You take if Doc Rivers and Greg Popovich just both died today. Well,
I mean, it's easy to sit there and say that Steve Kerr is one of the best in the NBA, but he also has one of the best teams
He's
ever.
working with the best.
Yeah,
teams.
Exactly. But to kind of wrap
just like
around,
Eric Holster, whatever the hell his name was, with LeBron in Miami, he wasn't doing anything.
Yeah, but to wrap around what your original question was about the package deal with Al Horford, I don't think, and this is to credit to Brad Stevens to kind of explain how good of a coach he is. I don't think many other teams would be interested in a package deal with Al Horford. Again, depending on who they're offering him and what they're getting in return. Because I don't think other teams would understand quite how to use Al Horford the way he uses them.
So you're stuck with him till retirement, pretty much, then, right?
I'm okay with that.
$30 million a year.
I'm okay with that.
I think you don't think he's going to have tired legs by the end. But he's on the better. He's on the second end of his career, right? He's definitely been in the league for a few years. So I think that eventually it could lead to what if he's not the ultimate setup guy or assist guy or whatever the hell you want to call him.
For whatever I mean, from an outside perspective, and I'm, again, similar to Tim, not as involved with the team as you are, just to play even a little bit more devil's advocate from what Tim was saying, yeah, maybe his production might go down a little bit, but isn't he kind of like a glue guy too? Like, he's just the type of guy where every team needs that kind of guy that just is the consummate professional on and off the court, and that adds something too, whether you want to accept it or not. Teams that win typically have guys like that can kind of be the calming presence or the professional guy in the room. When you got a guy like Marcus Smart who's punching picture frames and missing 2 weeks of action, and you saw what that did taking him off the court, having a guy like Al Horford there, even if his production does go down a little bit, I think you're kind of right that he adds things that just maybe can't be quantified or can't be exactly pinpointed, but they add something to make the team better.
Absolutely. I mean, when you think of a Boston Celtic, in my eyes, he gives you exactly what you want. A guy that's going to work hard on and off the field. He's not on and off the court in this situation. I'm thinking football. But it's a guy, he's not going to bark at a ref. He's not going to bark at his other teammates. He's going to do it. He's going to show you how to do it. He's not going to tell you how to do it. You know what I mean? He's going to show you what his worth ethic. And, I can't off the top of my head. I think it's his third year on the team. Going into his second year on the team, he was already considered one of the captains of the team just because of the way he presented himself.
He beat the Celtics in playoffs the year before that. That's kind of the attraction they had already. But we're kind of running out of time with you, I guess. We only had 30 minutes with Devon today. But before you go, how do you feel about this Team LeBron? What are they doing with the All-Star break? What are they doing with it?
I like it. I got to be honest with you. I like the fact that they try to separate from the East and West and try to make it more. The one thing that the NBA has going for them that the NFL and the NHL don't have going for them is a lot of drama. There's a lot of drama going on, and I think that played a good part into why Adam Silver decided to change up the roster format for the All-Star game. He wanted to do it, a YMCA pickup game type thing, so that way you can kind of see the drama unfold. Oh, LeBron got Kyrie. Does that mean he still hates him? You know what I mean? How does Kyrie feel about this? And adding an incentive, $100,000 for each player to the winning team, and also you get a $100,000 donation to the charity of their choosing. I think that plays a big part into it, and that's why you saw a very competitive game. Not as competitive as I wanted to see it, obviously.
Last few minutes were.
Exactly. But, you're not going to see a completely competitive game because it's still in the middle of the season. But I like it, and I think going forward, Adam Silver already stated he should have televised the draft because that would have had killer ratings. Everyone was sitting by the Twitter sphere waiting for.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that point up. That was kind of shocking that they botched that one.
Yeah, and everyone's sitting on on their phones waiting to see who's gonna leak out the rosters and who's gonna leak out the last pick of the draft. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I from the rating standpoint, I totally agree with you. Where you need drama. Every other league in this, especially the MLB, a sport that's just dying for youth. I mean, it just needs it, and it's a sport that everyone, the last time I found the MLB, for example, interesting was at the height of the Red Sox Yankees, and I still find it interesting. But when I was really, really, I couldn't miss a game, was height of the Red Sox Yankees rivalry because they hated each other. They were fist fighting in the games. Now they're slapping each other's ass, and they have their hands in their back pockets. Like, I think they're dating, and it's the same thing with the NBA players. You got LeBron and like D Wade, and they're on different teams. They're in the same team. They still love each other, and then like Chris Bosh is like rubbing up on people and like behind them and stuff during interviews. It's really weird. You wouldn't see that crap from even like Michael Jordan's era, which wasn't that long ago. So I think if the players aren't going to have that drama, making the league itself form natural drama, that's Silver's got to be I wouldn't give him genius, but he's pretty damn smart for doing that.
He's definitely one of the best commissioners in the United States. I have to give him credit for that. He's done a lot of good things that sport, and I think he's slowly trying to dip the ratings of the NFL, because the NFL was always going to be up there, and so was the MLB. But I think Adam Silver is slowly going to make a push to the top.
Well, not to mention the recent news he's in, but Mark Cuban, he a while ago mentioned something about the NFL, that the NFL is going to eventually get too greedy. I think we're seeing that point now. I mean, not to go too far down this road, but I think with the NFL, it's one, they clearly have Roger Goodell as a puppet, which Adam Silver isn't. Roger Goodell, whatever the owners say, you can't, it's like how South Park, if you've seen that one, how they mention him, he's a robot that breaks sometimes. He says the same thing, and it's only what the owners want to say. With Adam Silver, his first year, he kicked out Donald Sterling. Talk about power. So I think the NBA has some definite good. I think it's gonna be like down the line for years and years. The NBA and NFL will switch off, but the NBA is winning this one right now.
Absolutely.
But Devon, thanks again for coming in. I mean, we hope to have you back sometime at all, either on the phone or in studio, whatever you want to do. And hopefully before the playoffs really start, we can get you in one more time, maybe even during the playoffs, see what Celtics can make out of this.
Absolutely, I appreciate you guys having me on today. I'd love to come on again.
Yeah,
thanks a lot,
for coming
man.
out.
And you can find Devon at CLNS Media. He writes for the Celtics and covers NBA. You also can find his articles in high school sports, local coverage in the Standard Times, and you also listen to his GOAT podcast. Can they find it on iTunes, or is it going to be on?
Yep. It's on iTunes and Stitcher.
iTunes and Stitcher. There you go. So the GOAT that was a mess. The GOAT podcast with Devon Clements. Thanks for that. Thanks, Devon. Come on. Damn, I fucking started.